Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 2000 Project, where myself and Russell Howell are going through pretty much, well, every movie of the year 2000 that we can. Russell, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to the show as we have our first guest of the 2000s year. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, well, the first movie we're going to be talking about this time around is a pretty important one. It's the first tentpole one of the new millennium. It's a little ditty called Scream 3.
Scream 3.
Don't panic.
This was directed once again by Wes Craven and sees the originals come back, Nev Campbell, David Arquette, then known Patricia, or then known as Courtney Cox Arquette, but then and others as well. And to join us for this time around, I had to call in a favor from my local Scream expert. Hello, Eric. It's an honor. It's Eric Moreno. Eric, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm far from local. I'm from a whole other country, but I appreciate being the one to be called for Scream 3, especially. I love to talk about Scream, so I'm very happy to be here.
So the basic premise of if you're watching this, you've probably seen this movie before, but the basic gist is that Sidney Prescott and all have moved on and pretty much tried to live some semblance of a normal life. But then Ghostface rears his ugly head again, and this time around in the Hollywood Hills, as a new Stab movie is about to be is in production, as they say, where it's basically covering the basic events of Scream. It's a whole movie within a movie thing. I've always seen the Scream franchise as pretty consistent in terms of quality, but I've seen just from looking outwards, this is seen as one of the weaker ones. But I've always kind of liked this movie, though it is far from perfect. Russell, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, out of the original trio of films, I think this is the weaker of the three. Again, that's not saying like no disrespect because at a 3.5 or whatever, I'd probably give it out of five. I mean, most films would love to be a 3.5 at least out of five. So I think this being the weakest at 3.5, I think it just tells you how powerful this franchise is. Obviously with the OG in '96 and then Scream 2 in '97. Like I said, when I went and saw this movie, when I saw the first one when I was 13, when it came out in '96, and I just kind of thought it was going to be one of those standalone films, and I didn't realize that it had done so well to garnish a sequel and then a trilogy. So I mean, obviously, we went and saw these movies when they came out, and they always hold a special spot in pop culture for us.
Eric, what say you?
Oh, well, I'm on the way other way of the spectrum. I saw Scream 3 when 20 years later because I was 1 year old when Scream 3 came out.
Oh, boy, I feel
But
old now.
yeah, sorry about that. That happens a lot in this community. Scream 3, I had the benefit of hindsight with that one. A whole other movie had came out by the time I saw Scream 3. The Harvey Weinstein stuff had already happened when I saw Scream 3. And so Scream 3 really sticks out to me. Yes, it's the redheaded stepchild, as somebody will call it. It's not the greatest movie in the franchise, none at all. But many other horror franchises will wish to have a movie as good as Scream 3, which I think makes it a pretty decent movie. Like a decent horror movie, a sequel, that's a rarity, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. But it's better than Courtney Cox's haircut in this film.
Anything is better than that.
I was looking at Letterboxd reviews for this one, and there were several that were like, the only thing scary in this movie is Courtney Cox's hair. And I'm like, ah, I mean, I can kind of see it to be perfectly honest. I'm far from a
Yeah.
hair expert, but I'm just sitting there like, the
We-
bangs. Why the
yeah,
bangs, though?
dude, it's one of those things. Again, this ages me, And Eric said he obviously saw it, but this ages me because I used to watch Friends. I remember Courtney Cox from Ace Ventura. You know what I mean? Like, so to see that where she went hairstyle wise, it was like a huge thing. And I remember it was like, oh my god, her hair like it looks awful in this movie. Um, so I mean that's just because Friends was obviously still at its height, in popularity as well. But the original three, like I said, I really just I hold those in a really a high spot because I just think the first three films are just so dear to my heart. You know what I mean?
One of the things that I found in my research is that this is based on an outline written by Kevin D. Williamson, but this was not written by Kevin D. Williamson. He had notes, but he is not formally credited as the writer. Instead, the man credited with writing this movie is by the name of Aaron Kruger, a
No
longtime
relation.
screenwriter. Sorry?
No relation to Freddy.
Oh, yeah, no relation. But Aaron Kruger has had a long career, but recently he's gotten some fame because he wrote the screenplay for a little movie called Top Gun Maverick. Some of you may have seen this little low-budget indie, but see it if you haven't. And I feel like this has some of the most inspired stuff in the franchise so far, but also some of the laziest at the same time. You can clearly watch this and see to yourself, okay, Columbine had a bit of an influence on this and what they were trying to go for. Because there's a scene about 20 minutes in where Roman Bridger and Roger Corman, who plays a studio exec, but he's making a very big cameo, are talking about violence in movies, which I thought was just amazing considering that Roger Corman literally made his career on making violent, schlocky, low-budget B movies. But I feel like that and Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which Eric, you were on my channel to talk about with, I feel like with those two movies, I feel like there was some money left on the table. And obviously can't talk about some of that stuff because of, the whole too soon effect. I think they could have done a little bit more with that.
Yeah, I think the way Scream 3 is affected by that sticks out a lot more than with Teaching Miss Tingle, because with Teaching Miss Tingle, there's nothing to compare it for in regards to a franchise, as opposed to Scream 3, which Scream 1 and especially Scream 2 are hella violent. There's a lot of blood in them. There's a bit more cursing than in this one. There's a bit of cursing in Scream 3. But you can see how much the kills, especially in this movie, are very censored. Like, it's very weird to see like a kill, for example, Sarah Darling's kill, like she's stabbed from the back. We don't even see the wound, not no blood in it. Like it's a pretty standard chase. It's fun. Like if you want to see Jenny McCarthy get killed, there you have it.
What ended up happening with Kevin D. Williamson and his lack of involvement here is that, quite simply, he was just too busy, not just with teaching Mrs. Tingle, but he also did a little movie called I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I've already covered on the channel for last year's Scary Mania, and a movie I quite enjoyed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We could do armchair quarterback all day about how like Kevin D. Williamson could have made this movie better, but the reality is that he wasn't directly involved, so we can only judge it from what we ended up watching. And I think for the most part, it was pretty solid. I want to pass it off to both of you guys in this, and that I think Sidney Prescott here is kind of not wasted, but underutilized. Like, I think it's interesting that she lives by herself. She's a woman's counselor, which I mean, that's seems very, very Sidney Prescott of her way to go. I just feel like Dewey and uh, Dewey and Gale were doing far more interesting things in this movie than Sydney. Am I crazy?
No, I mean, no, I didn't think so. I thought that you have Sydney, have her as pretty much like a side character, and she's the face of the franchise here. I mean, she's Sydney Prescott. You know what I mean? To have her kind of like play second fiddle to Dewey and Gale for a while, and yeah, that is pretty much what you saw, like her being a counselor. You kind of figured that she wants to help people, empower people that they're not alone, and I appreciate that because that's just the type of character that she is. But the other kind of thing is like I get like she wants to be removed from Woodsboro and all the tragedies that had befallen upon her and her mother and just everything that unraveled in the first two screams. I think she just kind of wants to, what I mean, make a split for it and kind of just live like this tranquil life. But on the flip side of it, are you able to do that after all that has happened? Do you know what I mean? Are you able to move on, pick up the pieces, and kind of do your own living? And kind of what you were saying about it, I was kind of surprised that they kind of like underutilized her. I feel like the second half of the film, a little bit more of an involvement there, obviously with her character. But I definitely feel like this is like probably the least amount of screen time she received in the first three films. I would say.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say there's a big behind the scenes reason for the way Neb Campbell disappears from half the movie. Like she was filming, I believe it's Drowning Mona, but I could be wrong. Somebody fact check me if you
That's
can.
right. Yeah, you're
She
right.
was yeah, she was filming it at the same time, so she couldn't be available to be in the whole movie. And in that way, especially in regards to runtime, I think Neb Campbell is really missing from the movie in a sense. But on the other hand, to play devil's advocate, I think the storyline she's given gives her a lot to work from in regards to the trauma she has lived through. This is the only thing that really makes it stand out as a proper trilogy, like the way the scenes if you want to call it that, the scenes for her mother have translated to this third movie in the trilogy, the way Randy says that it all comes together in the end, with the big exposition stuff and all that. I think Neb Campbell really stands out, especially in the Woodsboro chase scene. I think that really shows, like, some of the stuff is ridiculous, like the way the killer pretends to be her mom. That's kind of goofy. But
Yeah.
the work that Neb Campbell is doing is really, really good, and I think that makes it. I think out of the first three movies, I think this is her best performance. I think she has grown as the character, and I think the way they wrote it in the sense that she's working like that, I agree with Russell here. Like I think that's what Sydney will do. She will try to help other victims the way she does also in Scream 4 when she writes the book and all that. That's a good through line for your main character to have across many movies, not just being the character stuck with these events happening around her. I think that storyline is one of the highlights for me in Scream 3.
Bring up Drowning Mona, Eric, because the two, Scream 3 and this, come in within like weeks of each other. So Nev Campbell was having a very healthy year 2000. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
that's good to have work. Yeah, good for her.
indeed. But like I said, we had a Roger Corman cameo, but we also have one from Jay and Silent Bob, which I did not see. I did not remember, and I've seen the movie before. But they're in there for like a scene, but it's nice to see them. And legit, something I forgot happened. Carrie Fisher is in this movie, and it's not just like a blink and you miss it thing. She actually has a whole through line, and she drops a Princess Leia like callback, which
Yeah.
I was completely taken aback by. Like, wow, like it was a completely different world back in 2000 to where like she could drop a Princess Leia reference and like nobody noticed. I'm sure someone noticed at the time, but I guess the point is that the movie's actually secretly pretty loaded. You got the regulars, but Patrick Dempsey's in here, Lance Henriksen is in here, Jenny McCarthy, Emily Mortimer, Parker Posey. It's a deep bench, let's just say.
We haven't talked enough about Parker Posey. Like she's the best new character in the movie. Like she's just hilarious.
Oh my.
The main thing that Scream 3 proponents give is like it's really really funny, and that's because Parker Posey is there playing alongside Courtney Cox as playing Gail Weathers, or playing Gail Weathers the movie, Jennifer Jolie, and all that stuff. I think she's the best part of the whole movie. I think whenever the movie is really really funny, it's because of her, and also because of the other side roles. Like Carrie Fisher is really fun in this one. I don't know about Jay and Silent Bob. I'm a fan of them. I like when Wes Craven makes a cameo back in Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. And so
Yeah.
that's a good crossover there, that they made a favor to each other. So yeah, Parker Posey is like the best. Like she's the best in everything. She's the best here out of the new guys, the new cast.
And also, real random, I'm going to go ahead and throw a random shout out to one of my favorite bands of the 90s and 2000s. That would be Creed. What If is the beginning song. Just a shout out for that. Dude, Human Clay. If you guys aren't familiar with Creed's second album, it was fantastic. It was a banger from top to bottom. And What If is just amazing. They actually filmed as part of as part of the Scream 3 DVD, the music video for Creed What If is actually on the DVD. And if you notice, I'm trying to think, when Sydney goes to the house that set up the Woodsboro house or whatever, there is actually a Creed poster of the band in her bedroom, which I thought was kind of cool. It was just like a little callback there. But yeah, and I really thought that the soundtrack's actually really fantastic. If you look at the bands that are on the Scream 3 soundtrack, it's actually pretty deep of who's
Yeah,
who
the
here.
song itself, "What If," plays when Cotton Weary is making his way back to his house. And
Yeah,
yeah, there's a whole music video with David Arquette in it. It's on the special features of Scream 3's DVD or Blu-ray, whatever. I have it over there. I forgot to pick it up. But yeah, it's a good soundtrack. There's Slipknot there. This it's a very 2000 soundtrack, but every
Oh,
Scream Scream soundtrack
yes.
is really of its age. Like if and studying for trivia, you kind of have heard everything Scream wise, and
Yeah,
so
for
I even
sure.
had to check the franchise, the soundtrack itself. I learned a lot about the
Yeah,
references it uses and all that. And
yeah.
I am not the biggest Creed fan, but I do really like that song. What if it's really good.
Well, yeah, like I said, this was their, this was their heyday in the late '90s, early 2000s, man. So it was really great that they got that call for the soundtrack. I think Finger Eleven does a song on their Fuel bangers. I mean, these there's some really good artists on here too. So it's a really good soundtrack.
Yeah, I've heard this album, Human Clay, before. It needs a re-listen because I greatly enjoyed that. I mostly popped for the fact that they had the song Red Right Hand by Nick Cave, which is the opening song to a series on Netflix called Peaky Blinders, which is just phenomenal. If you all have not seen it, I can't recommend it enough. But when I heard the familiar dun dun dun
Yeah,
dun dun dun, I'm like, I know this song, and it's just like flood of memories come like right back into it, and I forget that it was like, oh yeah, other things used Red Right Hand before Peaky Blinders. I just plumb forgot.
I was gonna say you just like to make me feel old, I guess, because I obviously Red Right Hand obviously was seared as Scream. I even have it on my Halloween playlist on my Spotify playlist for Halloween time. So yeah, go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say the same thing. Like I
Yeah,
haven't seen Peaky Blinders. I saw Scream before I heard that it was the main title song for Peaky Blinders. But it's very funny how that song separates generations. Like some generations, Red Right Hand is definitely the Scream song because it's in every movie besides four. Yeah,
yeah,
like that's a big part of the movie. It appears in the first movie like as a casual song, and then it became too popular. They had to use it again in the second one. And then I believe in the second one is at the in the opening, like in the theater. I think it plays
yeah,
during the credits of the movie of
yeah.
Stab, and then it's here during the Sunrise Studios appearance. In four, is in the radio in Scream 2022, and I'm forgetting where in Scream 6 is, but it must be there. But yeah, I find it very funny that Jacob associates it with Peaky Blinders when it's definitely the Scream song for many other people, especially Scream
Uh,
fans, of course.
that's funny. Yeah,
Well, one thing that I did want to make sure I point out is that over the years, this movie has taken on a bit of a new meaning because, well, like Eric referred to, the Harvey Weinstein stuff. Lance Henriksen plays this super producer, and it's not necessarily like alluded to as is outright stated that. And I didn't catch this until this rewatch when he said, I used to hold parties. And I'm like, I'm sorry, parties? Like, are we talking about like a puff situation? So, if there is an element from this movie that has rather unfortunately aged tremendously well, I would argue it was that because Parker Posey's character like says, "I did not sleep with John Milton to die in this." I'm like, "Oh my God." And not to mention the Weinsteins produced this. So
yeah.
you got to
Miramax.
imagine that someone must have smartened them up to this. But I guess, I don't know, maybe they were just so arrogant in their ways. They were like, oh, they'll never find out. Well, they did. They very much did.
I could
I think
see that.
like even before the case was everywhere. I remember like I kind of knew about it before it came out. Like I that those kind of stories were always there about Harvey, and I think they let it slide because if we remove it, maybe we seem guilty by association. Might as well keep it there. And I'm pretty sure like most directors like they were fighting with Harvey Weinstein about a lot of stuff, and this is Wes Craven's way to stick middle finger to them, I guess. I would have to guess that's that if it's intentional, of course. There's a lot of mentions of that in that movie, besides the fact that, that he says that the party stuff, the way like especially other people, like especially the bad guys mistreat Maureen Prescott about her, that the way she
She was,
felt during she was a victim, and
yeah,
the main bad guys blame her for stuff, especially the main Ghostface, of course. And there's the whole what's her name, Emily Mortimer's character, I'm forgetting her name, is Angelina Tyler
yeah.
even also mentions I didn't she's the one that says I did not sleep with that pig Milton to die with second rate celebrities like you two. That's a pretty fun line. and then the whole Jennifer. There's a lot of that in the main through line of the movie. It's not. I don't think it's accidental. I think it's pretty much part of the thing that Wes Craven and I guess Aaron Kruger and Kevin Williamson wanted to tell about this movie, having their experiences with Weinstein and Hollywood at the time, especially with the way it happens in Hollywood, especially like the movies in Los Angeles. It has to be about something inside the dark stuff of LA, I guess.
Well, I mean, which would make sense, obviously. And then, then 20 years later, I mean, that's stuff that you could get away with back then in 2000. Obviously, fast forward 20 years later, the whole Me Too movement and stuff like that ain't going to fly. It's not going to happen. And I think the reason why it was allowed to happen for so long is because Weinstein was making so much money for Miramax. Think of all the blockbusters Miramax had in that 90s, 2000s ish. They had some, I mean, they had some big hits. I mean, Miramax was a top notch production company. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think 20 years later it would just come down like just like the Leaning Tower of Pisa just fall down there. It's completely crazy. Yeah,
Interesting thing is that Miramax is technically still around, but they're pretty
yeah.
much like it's just pretty much like Spyglass is. It's just a brand. Like people are like, oh, Spyglass. It's like they're not really a studio as they're like, oh, there's the thing. Like it's like just uh it just feels like a brand in their portfolio. It's like the one scene in Breaking Bad where Gus Fring dies and then the one dude in Marigold like commit suicide, and then you just see all the wall of like all of their brands, and like Los Pollos Hermanos just so happens to be one of them.
Yeah, like it's the way Hydra works. It has cut one head, a couple more came out. Like I think you drop the Weinsteins, Miramax sticks there. Like the Weinsteins weren't super associated with Miramax anymore. They had their own thing, the Weinstein Company. They of course were like a sub company of Miramax probably, and that makes it easier to separate. So, but Miramax, especially at this time, were like the big hitters, as previously mentioned in box office and Oscars. Like the year before, they just won the Oscar for Shakespeare in Love, and that's pretty well known fact that they won it because of the politics in Hollywood. Like Harvey was chasing favors, and that's how that movie probably won instead of like a movie like Saving Private Ryan.
This is the one that has the most Wes Craven in it because I'm sure that someone watching or listening to this knows this fact, but I always find it fascinating to know that Wes Craven never really wanted to direct horror movies, or he never really wanted to be known as a horror director necessarily. He always wanted to direct dramas, which is why in his career he directed movies like Music of the Heart, which I've actually reviewed on the channel as part of the 99 Project. It's actually pretty good, but I think it was a bit of a double-edged sword in that Wes Craven was so good at what he did in the horror world that it just like everything else would be like, wait, Wes Craven directed that? Roman Bridger is a weird like avatar of Wes Craven, for lack of a better word. He has this whole thing of like they've killed my movie, they've killed my cast. Like I feel like Wes Craven was maybe letting out a little bit of anger with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where that would be a little bit like how you said it would be a little bit more of a more like Wes Craven personal, I think, just because of the fact that you have Roman as a director and kind of just he's having a little bit more fun with this one, kind of having like maybe, Roman's character could be kind of loosely, Wes Craven-esque. So I do like that.
There's an old saying in journalism, write what you know, and
Yeah.
well, let's just say Mr. Craven was writing what he knew, was that like horror is fine and all, but he would have wanted to do a few more musics of the heart or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. I mean, even your Red Eye, I mean, it's not your traditional horror movie, it's more thriller than it is horror film for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think to kind of bring things home and bring it all to a close, I feel like Scream 3, there was a lot of money left on the table. And like I said, I think this franchise has a pretty good baseline of consistency. Like, I consistently enjoy all of them, but I feel like there are just better ones than others. And I think this is just generally one of the weaker ones. Not a bad movie by any means. I just feel like because of real life events, there was like a lot of the bite, like the cobra was defanged a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit more like almost like straight to TV at like tame, like where you weren't able to really just kind of let go like you were able to in 96 and 97. um, Kind of just had to pull back a little bit. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of, I mean, and you didn't need the gore and all the killing and stuff like that to do that. But in the same token, though, you became accustomed to them, obviously, with the first two Scream films. So to see this one kind of like, especially at your culmination, if this is going to be the third movie, this could be the final film, you kind of pull back the reins a little bit. It's kind of odd to see that, you know?
Also, one last thing before I give my score. The thing that I appreciated the most was that it felt like an ending. Like it felt, and they do this whole thing with trilogies in that like they bring up the fact that like trilogies are like all bets are off and like the endings of them, and I liked that. But I also feel like this felt like the proper like ending. Like, and I know we've gotten Scream 4, 5, and 6, and I'm not going to debate whether or not those should have existed. I feel like that could be another video for another time. I think generally speaking, though, if the movies ended here, I don't think anyone would have minded. But I mean, obviously, that did not happen.
Well, no, I mean, obviously the cash grab came about, and I mean, it's you've already established three films. People are going to see these movies, so let's put the title Scream. Let's bring back the majority of the all your characters from Scream 3, pretty much. Dewey, Gale, and Sydney, and let's do it. You know what I mean? So I mean, I find that as the reason why. Um, you know, my guy was always Randy, heartbroken and Scream 2 with that whole tragedy. But I did like the fact that he was in video form here, so kind of still made a cameo in Scream 3, which was kind of cool to tie that in. Um, but yeah, like you said, if they ended this one with these three, I would be totally fine with that. I think it's a real strong trilogy for sure. Especially with you have really no competition thereafter really that could really come close to what Scream did. I think Scream revitalized the horror genre because in the mid '90s you really didn't have much, and it kind of really reshaped the way horror films went post 2000. I mean, I think Scream's definitely it paved the way for it while bridging. The slasher genre, that Wes Craven helped create in '84. So to me it's a really great trilogy, and I really I always have a soft spot for this one because like I said, this trilogy is damn near perfect. You're going to have some flaws, and I think they really rear their ugly head here in the third film. But again, when you have three when you have a third film that's still pretty damn good, and you're saying that that's the worst one of the three, I think you're doing okay. Yeah.
On my scale though, I'm going to give this a good rating, but a high good rating. Again, it's far from perfect, but I feel like what Russell was saying, I feel like this movie was a very nice way to cap things off. And I feel like if the movies ended here, and obviously they did not end here, but if they did end here, then I would have been more than satisfied. Eric, do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, I'm very glad it came back from before the end.
Just
Yes,
for full transparency, Eric and his Wi-Fi have been having a death battle, so
yeah, I'm winning apparently. Not anymore. Whatever. Yeah, Scream 3. When I feel really good about it, I give it like a 3.5 stars out of 5. Some days I feel like 3 stars, never below 3 stars. I think there's too much good stuff for me to give it below that. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it has some fun chase scenes. I think it has a good kill here and there. The voice recorder stuff. This is backstage stuff. I don't know if you talk about the voice recorder stuff. That stuff really keeps it down for me. Like I think that's ridiculous. I think that takes out all that especially takes away from Roy Jackson's amazing voice performances, Ghostface. I think that's a wasted opportunity. So that's why I have to give it like 3 stars is the average I gave it every time because it's fun, but it's the lesser of like the first three especially.
yeah. And so I pass off to all of you. What did you think of Scream 3? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. And Russell and I have a few more movies to cover this week, but this is where Eric gets off. But thank you so much for your time, Eric. I'll be calling you again if I need anything Scream related in the near future, or, well, anything horror related, I will keep you in mind. But your YouTube channel is YouTube at Spoil Lord, but we're also teaming in Why We Love Horror Trivia. You're doing a whole bunch of things in the trivia world. Do you have anything coming up?
Nothing comes to mind like that, especially urgent. But yeah, check out Why We Love Horror. Jacob and I play there. We're very good, both of us. Don't let them tell you otherwise. We're both really good. And then check out CWT, Lights Out, WWT, ASAT, Multiplex, all of that stuff. I was barely in, but I've made it to the finishing line. I'm happy to be here anytime to talk about Scream.
Excellent. Well, Eric's going to be back on the channel hopefully very soon. So thank you so much, Eric. I look forward to having you back on very soon. But Eric is disembarking, but Russell, we must continue on because this is the life that we have chosen. So let us continue on and talking about a strange little oddity from the directorial mind of Danny Boyle. It's a little film called The Beach.
May God take your soul.
I will not die today!
The Beach was directed by Danny Boyle and it starred Leonardo DiCaprio and Tilda Swinton, among others. It tells the story of a young man played by DiCaprio who is on vacation in Singapore to get away from it all. However, he discovers a secret island with some friends in the middle of nowhere. The island is populated by a sorta kind cult. It's never fully explained, and we'll talk about why in a second. But long story short, it starts out really good, but then goes south really fast. So, Russell, at the time of we're recording this, Danny Boyle is like he's still active and he's still doing pretty solid work. Like in context of 2000, he's in between Train Spotting and 28 Days Later, and he's got 28 Years Later coming up a little later on in 2025. The point I'm trying to get at is that I think Danny Boyle doesn't get nearly the credit he deserves because he's got 28 Days Later, Train Spotting, Slumdog Millionaire, 127 Hours, Sunshine, which I think is underrated, Steve Jobs, which is another underrated one. I think Danny Boyle, I think he's got a lot more bangers, as the kids say, than people give him credit.
Oh yeah, he has more hits than misses for sure. Yeah, like you said, keep in mind this is right after Train Spotting and right before 28 Days Later. So, and the only one he had a Life Less Ordinary too in '97, which I didn't see.
No, I
But
didn't see that either, but I knew that was like sandwiched like right in the middle.
yeah, obviously, then he really starts to get, his footing. I think after like post 28 Days Later. I mean, obviously Train Spotted, but then like 28 Days Later, and then you really get the ball rolling with all of his movies that were pretty much all hits. Even yesterday too. Yesterday was really good too. Underrated film.
Thing is that I bring this up because we both can appreciate Danny Boyle. However, this is certainly a movie of his that he made, and it's
Yeah.
not terrible by any means. I don't know, I just wasn't too crazy about it.
I mean, this was the first time watching it for me. And you as well. Um, this was your first time watching it too, I believe, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I had never seen it, and honestly, like I said, I stayed away from it because of the fact that people were saying it was bad. Again, I was like 17 when this movie came out, so like I don't know, just it was off the radar. I knew of it obviously, because all the women, all the girls in high school loved Leonardo DiCaprio after Titanic and Man in the Iron Mask and all that. So like they were all Googling over, how, beautiful they thought he was. But I mean, keep in mind, this is before I think Leonardo DiCaprio really breaks out. Like I'm talking pre Catch Me If You Can, pre Gangs of New York, and then he really starts to surge as an actor, as a leading actor. I think this is where you really kind of see he definitely has the gravitas to lead a film. And I thought like and going into it, I expected already it to be not that great because of word of mouth. So to me, I really wasn't disappointed. There are some things that there were some directions I wish we could have went in the film, but overall, I mean, it was okay. It wasn't the, it's definitely not Boyle's best film, and I definitely don't think it would be his worst film either.
My big hang up with this is just how like less of a story there is here. It just feels like DiCaprio and his friends going to this island and then that's it. And I don't think there's really anything having to do with it. Even Tilda Swinton feels wasted here. And it feels like you could have done something with this. Make it kind of like like a tropical version of The Wicker Man, the original, not the Nicolas Cage one. Watch the original. Do not watch the one with not the bees. Like, don't do that. I don't know, or do something like Midsommar did, like
Yeah,
Midsommar on a beach, something like that. And I feel
yeah,
like they Danny Boyle wanted to talk about like how like the wider world of like how people are lost in their technology and all that, that could resonate like nowadays in 2025. But here it's just feel like he was more preoccupied with look at how beautiful this place is. And like,
yeah,
yeah, it's nice, but we don't know anything about DiCaprio. We know a little bit about Swinton's character, and the rest of the Islanders are like, there's literally a character. All we know about him is that he plays cricket and is a Christian. That's it.
yeah,
And nothing
yeah.
else beyond that.
I mean, some of this stuff was kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, it definitely there's a lot of shots that are very breathtaking. I think he does a really great job shooting that. Um, yeah, the vibes I get though, honestly, I like the mystery of this whole beach that you think, okay, it's this, it's this mysterious place. Does it exist? Does it not exist? Because again, it's like, for the sake of the movie, you probably know it's gotta happen, but then there's that doubt, what if it's not? Um, and then obviously when we meet Tilda Swinton, who's fantastic, and it's really nice to see her 25 years ago because it was like, damn, it's like, I'm so used to seeing her just like, films like recently, not like 25 years ago before she like really blew up. Um, and I think she does a great job being like the leader of the cult or leader of the uh revolution, I should say, or anti structure, I guess. Um,
Anti-authority.
yeah, anti-authority. I don't know. Like, I see what you're saying. I mean, because like, you know, the big thing is, Leonardo DiCaprio's character lets other people know about this beach, and that really causes a rift between Tilda Swinton's character and Leonardo DiCaprio's character, which makes Leonardo DiCaprio have to keep watch because of these people that he had told about, given the map to. You know what I mean? I mean, I get it. I get it. I like you said. I mean, it could have been a lot more. I was. I mean, I was like okay with it. I didn't think it was. It's not the greatest film, but it's not the worst. I mean, I thought Leonardo DiCaprio does a great job in it. I mean, he's young in this film. You know what I mean? Um, he's only a couple years after Titanic here.
Yeah, like 3 years afterwards. And
Yeah,
like I think the biggest thing that I can say is that everyone involved has done better and would do better after this. I think for
100%.
me personally, on my scale, it's pretty forgettable. Nothing really much to write home here. Not the worst, not terrible, but I just felt like I wanted more teeth with this one, and it just style over substance, if you will. And I'll just cap it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say middle of the road. I like to me like two and a half, 3 out of 5. I mean, I think it was just middle of the road. I mean, definitely a forgettable film. Far from Leonardo DiCaprio's best, far from Boyle's best. You know what I mean? And obviously Swinton and everybody else. But I mean, the thought was there. It was thought provoking enough.
Hmm.
But and then I also got shades of kind of like Lost too. I got like Lost vibes a little bit there too sometimes.
Well, let us press on and go to a couple of family films now, starting things off with the kind of thing that Russell is going through right now. It's a snow day.
Chevy Chase, Chris Elliott, Snow Day.
I'm going to ask my friends here to give me just a little push.
Snow Day was directed by Chris Koch, who would go on to direct a movie called A Guy Thing and literally nothing else. He literally does not have a biography on Letterboxd. That's what we're dealing with here. And the movie starred Chevy Chase, John Schneider, Gene Smart, and Iggy Pop, among others. And this is basically a series of stories that all take place over the course of one snow day.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the best way I can describe this. Russell, on a scale of 0 to what the heck is even that, how hard did your jaw hit the floor when you saw Chevy Chase in this thing?
It definitely hit it pretty hard. I was like, I totally forgot he was in this film. All right, keep in mind this is when Nickelodeon was kind of in its heyday, mid '90s to 2000s. I think they were putting out movies like I remember seeing Harriet the Spy. There was a bunch of movies that Nickelodeon did, like I believe no, that wouldn't be Nickelodeon. Doug's first movie that was Disney when that happened. But the Wild Thornberrys were coming out with movies. Hey Arnold. So Nickelodeon was definitely putting it out. And when you have like Chevy Chase at 2000, this is just a couple years removed from Vegas Vacation. Yeah, wow. It is kind of crazy.
I think I bring all of this up because this movie, by all accounts, just from the basic premise to just everyone involved, it feels like this shouldn't be that particularly great. I got a kick out of this one. It's not gonna like be greatest movie of all time. It's very much Nickelodeon produced this. It's got a lot of that style of humor in there. There's some jokes that haven't aged tremendously well. If you
Yeah.
Google Dan Schneider, you'll know why. But I think just in general, grand scheme, it could have been way worse, and it turned out to be way better than I was expecting. It at least made me laugh on more than one
Yeah.
occasion.
No, 100%. It definitely was an entertaining film. Um, and keep in mind that the girl that the mother, Chevy Chase's wife in this film, um, she is Skyping, or like before Skype was a thing. That is Chili from TLC.
Really, I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, that's chilly. Anyway, but like you said, like at all accounts, this movie should be a throwaway film, but it's actually funny. Chris Elliott's really great too, as a despisable character. The plowman, what is it? A snow plowman.
That
Yeah, yeah,
I loved that storyline so much. Not only is a young Josh Peck involved in that one, which
yeah,
that just blew me away. I'm like, look at him. He's so tiny. It is like
yeah,
that's my Drake and Josh viewing days. Like that was
yeah.
the one where I'm like, whoa. But then like that whole thing could have been so silly where it's just but they treat it seriously, but in a serious way where you're just like it's not serious, but they commit to it. And that's something that I appreciated.
For sure. I mean, like who didn't in middle school or high school like days when, you didn't have to go to school, it was canceled. You know what I mean? I feel like it happens a lot more nowadays with the generation than it did when we were like when I was in school. But those were the days, man. Like you liked that. Like the school cancellation, you get an extra day off. Well, not a day off, but you have to got to make up anyway. But it's just a day off at a random time. Um, and like the movie says, anything can happen on a snow day. It just makes it fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it is a fun family film. But I feel like this could go family film or like just you or I watching it by ourselves. You know what I mean? I think it goes either way. It's entertaining enough. This shouldn't have been as good as it was. I was surprised how much I liked it. I liked the whole headbutting of the meteorologist with Chevy Chase and Sean Schneider. I thought that was funny. It's just it's cute at heart. And it just it's definitely something I would watch again.
Seeing John Schneider play a villain kind of blew my mind because I've always known him as Jonathan Kent from Smallville, and he's been in other things I know. But I mean, I have a Smallville podcast on this channel, so he's Jonathan Kent for all intents and purposes.
Well, it's funny because the girl that plays Lana in the newer series that just wrapped up after its 4 seasons or whatever, she actually plays Lana and is in this film. The girl
Really?
that's the girl that he has a crush on, the diver, the girl that does the swimming that he
Oh,
has
you
a
mean
crush.
Claire?
Claire, yeah, the one that he has a crush on. She's Lana in the new Well, the one that the guy from Teen Wolf ended
Gotcha.
up, yeah, the four seasons of it they just had. I never watched it, but definitely I'm kind of intrigued enough to watch it now because it's like complete. That way I can watch it and say, hey, I'm a sucker for Superman, so I'm kind of curious about that.
But I think to kind of put the period at the end of the sentence on this, I'm giving this one a good rating. It's like I said, it's nothing really to be like, this is life-changing. No, could have so easily been disposable and just cringe and bad, but it's actually very enjoyable, especially considering this came out in February of that year, where it's not quite January, but it's also like just coming out of that funk. It could have been
Yeah.
way worse, but it turned out to be actually quite good.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna snowball on what you said and say I'm gonna recommend it too because I do think it's a good film. It's a serviceable film for families and if you just want to watch it by yourself. And it's definitely rewatchable. This easily could have been a complete bomb, but I think it was actually pleasantly surprising.
Well, let's close things out this time around by sticking in the family film realm and consult a certain TTFN Tigger. It's the Tigger movie.
That's a wonderful title.
The Tigger movie was directed by June Falkenstein, who directed a segment of my beloved Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. And this is a movie about Tigger from the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh, which was originally written by A. Milne. And this time around, Tigger is in search of his family. However, he is soul-crushingly alone. And so, in a bit of a ruse, the rest of the Hundred Acre Wood decides that they're going to turn into Tiggers to try and cheer him up a bit. So, so Russell, you're a bit of a Pooh fan just from us talking about it.
Yeah, dude, I am. I've always been a huge Tigger fan. Tigger is my OG. I sent you the picture. Like it was funny because my wife, like, my wife was with my daughter when she was, God, she had just been born. She had just been born. It was 2015, and I was already getting ready to pose a picture with Tigger, and they weren't even ready yet. Because like I don't know, I was so excited to meet Tigger. Yeah, I've always been a big Pooh fan, man. This is something I grew up on too. Um, I can't tell you how many times I've seen some of the older cartoons, but yeah, Tigger's always been my favorite.
And this is another one I would put into the you're making a spin-off of a very famous thing. This could so easily not work, but I gotta be perfectly honest. I thought this thing was delightful. I did not expect to like it this much, but I did.
Well, at the end, I think what makes the Winnie the Pooh series so successful is at its at family at heart. It always has those messages and stuff like that. And I think that's why it's so powerful. It's always so relevant. You know what I mean? You kind of know the direction it's obviously going to go. But at the end of the day, I think I guess that's what's transcended, Winnie the Pooh for so many generations is because of the fact that it touches on friendship, family, and it doesn't mean that they have to look exactly like you. You know what I mean? Friends can just be considered family as well, and there's always a strong message at heart. And I think that's why this film, like you said, it checks the boxes. It hits all the feels.
If you're expecting a Winnie the Pooh movie, there is a Winnie the Pooh movie in here. Like the animation style is the same. The animation is beautiful in this.
Yeah,
Like it's hand drawn, but it's like the kind of hand drawn where it's very pleasing to look at. Like especially because we're watching this technically in late winter and I live in Florida, so like winter is not a thing. But
it is.
I felt like I was like watching this in winter, that and fall. Like there's a lot of fall going on there as well. So just seeing that and seeing the hand-drawn animation of it all, I loved that.
I felt like I was living it because it is cold up here and there is snow on the ground. And at the time of this recording, fun fact, it is right now 16 degrees, feeling like 4 degrees. So yeah, it's cold. but yeah, it stays true to the animation style of Winnie the Pooh. So it's nothing that it's off like jarring or anything like that. Like the first time I saw like Batman Mask of the Phantasm with the square faces kind of threw things off. Do you know what I mean? They don't divvy from anything. They stick to the basics, and I think that's why staying true to form like that obviously helps. But yeah, I think it's beautiful animation, and it has all the feels of a normal Winnie the Pooh adventure.
And I also loved the designs of everyone involved, like from Tigger to Pooh to Roo to everyone involved. I think if I had to have like one small problem, there's this one song where like Tigger's singing about his family tree, and they don't directly reference, but they basically make an allusion to Jerry Springer. There's a whole big thing where it's like it's Tigger time, and you see a Tigger literally dressed to look like Jerry Springer, and there's
Yeah,
a family fighting in the background, and I'm just sitting there like, way to age this movie, guys. Like no offense
yeah.
to Jerry Springer, he's sadly no longer with us, rest in peace. But it's like that, and then there's a Marilyn Monroe like Tigger, like who does the whole 7 year itch thing over the grate. I'm just sitting there like, what 5, 6, 7, 8 year old is gonna get this?
I think that was put in just for to keep the adults' attention. I mean, though they didn't need to do that anyway because you're still paying attention, but still, I like how it does throw those things in that adults can be like, oh, hey, just kind of like a little callback.
It doesn't kill the movie for me. It doesn't be like, well, as soon as I saw Tigger Springer, like, no, that's
Yeah,
not the case. I
yeah,
was just sitting there like, really? Like what was a Maury Povich reference? Like too lowbrow? Like what are we doing, guys?
yeah.
You are not the Tigger. Like hello. But like I said, it doesn't kill the movie for me. I still greatly enjoyed it. I'm gonna give it a great rating. Severely underrated, especially in this era where Disney were just coming off of the Renaissance. Still kind of in that bubble, but if we're counting Tarzan as the definitive end of the Disney Renaissance, then then we're just coming at the tail end. That being said, though, the quality is still pretty high.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to hit the mid '90s Disney. I mean, it's hard to beat that. My all-time favorite, obviously, Lion King, and right behind it is Beauty and the Beast, and the third is Aladdin. So it's all boom, boom, boom. But yeah, it's kind of what you're saying. Um, it's still a couple years removed from obviously Tarzan. Still great soundtrack too. Um, yeah, it's still a good quality film, very underrated. I can see this one being overlooked, like severely overlooked.
It's interesting because I was doing research for this, come to find out, not only I just thought there was like many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh and then like the Winnie the Pooh movie we got in 2011. But no, there's this movie, there's
There's
a Pi
Piglet. Piglet has a movie too.
Piglet movie, and then there's a Heffalump movie, and I'm just sitting there like this Pooh cinematic universe is expansive.
Yeah, true story. Yeah, I knew Tigger had his own movie. I knew Piglet had his own movie. I think I'm pretty sure I saw the Heffalump movie too. And it's crazy that none of the other characters got like Pooh or Kanga or Roo didn't get a film. Rabbit, or Eeyore, be a depressing film. Be
Yeah,
like
well,
Requiem for a Dream, starring Eeyore.
oh dear Lord. Well, shout out to Peter Cullen who voices Eeyore in this movie, and I mean it's Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime, so of course he's gonna crush it, but especially here. What's interesting to note before we close things out for this video slash podcast, if you're listening on Spotify, is that the original voice actor for Tigger, and I can't remember his name right now, was
Jim
supposed
Cumming. Oh, no, 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 never mind.
it was Scott something. I'll put it in the
Yeah,
lower third here. Me and Post do it. But originally it was supposed to be him, but his voice was too raspy, and so Disney basically had to let him go. And so ultimately Jim Cummings not only did Pooh, but also did Tigger. And don't get me wrong, Jim Cummings is an absolute legend, and you can honestly not tell the difference.
yeah.
But it is unfortunate that, you know, the original Tigger voice actor was hired, but just his health just failed him.
Yeah, we actually Steel City Comic Con. We actually met him down in Pittsburgh, Jim Cummings. We have a picture with him.
I'm sure
Really nice,
he was a really nice guy.
really nice guy. He was wearing his Darkwing Duck shirt, so it was pretty cool.
Well, I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of Scream or any of the movies we've talked about this week? Let us know in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. Again, if you're listening on audio, 5 stars, do the thing. We would greatly appreciate that. But Russell, it's a privilege to do this with you every Friday. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, Notorious by Chance on Facebook. Finally, I think Chance and I are recording tomorrow. We're gonna do Mulholland Drive, and then I don't know what we got. I don't know what we have in store for March. Got some things that that'll be interesting. You guys can find us Notorious by Chance on YouTube, podcasts, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, the Facebook group link and the YouTube channel link are in the description. Give them a subscribe over there. As far as this channel goes, the David Lynch project is ongoing. I've got a special little mini series planned. I'm going to be reviewing some Best Picture winners for it being Oscar month coming in the month of March. And then stay tuned for next week, next Friday specifically, where Russell and I are going to be yeah, I can't talk. We're going to be going back to the horror iceberg and we're going to be taking a look at Chronicles, so stay tuned for that. But for Russell, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you all in the next one. Stay safe while bouncing. Y'all take care.